Hi guys, welcome back aboard good old Spiffy, our 44-foot hurricane damage DIY catamaran project boat. This week I want to test out a new type of varnish that I've never used before that I'm hoping we can use on the inside of the boat when we get that far. If the shipping gods are gonna smile upon us, we should also be able to install the new windows in the shipping container workshop this week and potentially get started on the framing. The windows won't get here until Thursday, but that leaves me time to do some other stuff, including building a hopefully spiffy collapsible workshop table for the shipping container. This week's video is sponsored by Surfshark. More about them a little bit later. In last week's video, I got my miter saw all dialed in, so we're ready to jump right in. I've made a quick model in Fusion to make sure the dimensions of the table will work inside of the shipping container. With the plywood tabletop cut to size, I got out the precious miter saw. And I was delighted to see that my efforts last week of dialing in the miter saw seem to be still holding up. I picked up a set of these cheap corner square doohickeys off of Amazon because for the legs to be collapsible, it is critical that the box is nice and square. For a brief second I considered making wooden bungs to cover up these screws, but then I remembered this is a workshop table and there's no point in going completely overboard. For the table legs to be able to pivot so that they'll be collapsible, they need to have a rounded top. I marked that out with a compass before joining two 2x4s for each of the legs. To finish the rounded tops on the table legs, I snuck up on the lines with 80 grit on my sander, and that turned out really well. My little workshop table project here is in no way fine furniture making, but it is a good way for me to slowly get warmed up for the dead tree carcass palooza that will be the cherry trim on the inside of the catamaran. I'm really excited for that part of the refit. It is super important that Captain Dum-Dum doesn't drill the holes in the top of the legs at a weird angle that could make it impossible to open or close the legs. Knowing that my frame is perfectly square, I used it as a bit of a jig for gluing up the legs. Rather than wood glue, I used a little bit of thickened epoxy for its gap-filling properties. No, I don't see any. There is not a single shark anywhere around this boat, and that's odd because this week's video is sponsored by Surfshark. Surfshark is a virtual private network. What is that? Well, it can be used for several things, like for instance putting your computer virtually in a different country or protecting your computer when you connect to public Wi-Fi. There are several good reasons for using a VPN. Ava is back in London helping her sister take care of our niece. They use Surfshark every single day for streaming their favorite TV shows that aren't available in the UK. It's super easy and it's set up right on her Apple TV. Depending on what country you travel to, some shows might not be available, or perhaps the entire platform is unavailable. An example of that is Max in the UK. Thanks to Surfshark, Ava and our niece won't have to be without their favorite TV shows. Surfshark is also fantastic for more serious purposes, like for instance when we were still cruising around Europe and we had to help Ava's parents with some health insurance stuff. That website, as with so many other government and healthcare websites, is only available inside of the US, so the only way we could help Ava's parents was to use Surfshark to virtually put our computer in the US. Go to surfshark.com/saillife or use the code SAILLIFE during checkout to get an extra 4 months of Surfshark VPN. Thank you so much to Surfshark for sponsoring this week's video. It is the next day, and keep in mind that the frame is not attached to the tabletop and the legs are not attached to the frame, so stuff might shift around a little bit, but yeah, I think that's gonna work. I'm heading into New Bern today to pick up some 2x4s for the framing in the shipping container, and while we're in there we can pick up some carriage bolts for the legs. But first I want to get this stuff out of the truck and also get it inventoried, because this is our precious new steering for the catamaran. We made it to North Carolina with the old steering in the boat, but it definitely needs to be replaced, and the new steering represents about $8,000 worth of doohickeys, so I definitely want to make sure we have everything there we ordered. I've meticulously gone through every little piece here. Everything is accounted for, I think, and everything looks super spiffy. This oozes Danish quality. I did notice something I just want to check with Jefa just to make sure it's okay. I noticed this bevel box here. I can turn part of the way with my hands, but then it kind of binds up and I can't turn it any further, so I just want to reach out to them and make sure that's okay. It'll be a while until we're ready to install all of this. We definitely want to be done with the structural repairs and the beautification of the inside of the boat before installing this stuff. I don't want to get epoxy or fairing compound smeared all over the beautiful engineering. I didn't show you the new wheel that's in here. I can feel that's the wheel, and I don't want to take it out because then it's just going to get scuffed up and scratched over the next few years. $8,000 is a lot of money. It is a lot of money to us. And we would not have been able to afford this without our awesome patrons and without our sponsors of the videos. And also, Sancho's at the yard that builds the Antares 44 let us order the Jefa steering through him to get their discount. So we got it as cheap as we could, but yeah, I'm really happy we have brand new steering. Now let's head to the big city and see if we can find some 5-inch carriage bolts. As if by magic, I am back from my little excursion to New Bern. Now Lowe's didn't have really nice 10-foot long 2x4s. They only had decent quality 8-foot ones. We need these for the sealing in the shipping container. I'll have to go back later anyways because I don't have the exact measurements for everything I need, so we'll get the 10-foot ones another day. But luckily, they had carriage bolts. I'm very excited to see if these holes are gonna line up, because if they don't line up and they're offset, then raising and lowering the legs might be either really annoying or downright impossible. So yeah, fingers crossed. As a little bit of a sanity check before doing anything drastic, I used a drill to transfer the location of the holes in the legs to the frame and just measured to make sure everything looked right. Color me lucky, I think this is gonna work out really well. With the table turned right side up, I again mixed up a little bit of thickened epoxy and used that to glue on the tabletop. There is no turning back now. The epoxy has been curing overnight, and we now have a finished workshop table for the shipping container. Just in time, because today is varnish day. Varnishing the shop table here is going to be a little bit of a torture test. I also want to varnish the office desk. I'm sure that's going to fare really well, but this thing will be more exciting to see. Now, I'm going to try this new product. Never tried it before. It's a water-based varnish that I'm really excited about. Pardon the ignorance here, but I believe this is pronounced halcyon. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, this one here in the middle is the satin one. We're just going to use that for the last 1 or 2 coats, so let's put that guy aside. What I really wanted was the amber gloss version of this. You can see these are both clear because this is all I could get my hands on short notice. I'm not gonna do the whole table, just the top of it here, and that will just be a little bit of a torture test to see if we're gonna get any kind of failures. What I'm the most excited about finishing is this tabletop here, because I think the contrast between the pine and the Meranti plywood is going to look really cool. That's kind of why I wanted the amber, because I think that's going to make it look better, but all we have is the gloss, so this will just be a little test. I found these little 3D printable painting cones for getting whatever you're coating up off of the surface. And previously I've always just used a bit of scrap plywood and a couple of screws or something like that, but this is a lot easier. That's pretty neat. Now if I was to change one thing about these, it would be to make them either wider or shorter, because right now they have a tendency to want to wobble over a little bit. As mentioned, I have never used this product before, so the very first thing I'm going to do is to reread the TDS, or the technical data sheet. It's such a quick thing to do, and there is nothing worse than having a paint failure or having your finished result not turn out as well as you had hoped. And like sometimes there are little pitfalls, right? And this doesn't just go for this product, this goes for every single varnish type product I've ever used. Because say you want a satin finish, right? You don't just go out and buy the satin one. No, you got to build up all the coats first using the gloss one. That's in the TDS, but if you're just in the store looking at these two and you go, oh, well, I want the satin one, then yeah, you might have some issues. We all make mistakes, and I have certainly made my share of mistakes, but yeah, if we can do anything to minimize it, that is certainly a good thing. The instructions specifically mention to shake or massage the bag for a few minutes to make sure everything is thoroughly mixed. The first coat of any varnish type product is always fun because you get a really good idea of what the finished result is going to look like. Applying the Halcyon was very straightforward. The instructions mentioned to apply it a little bit thicker than you would normal varnish. In hindsight, I could have gone a little bit thicker on the first coat, but this is my first time using this product. After 1 hour, the first coat was dry to the touch and I was ready for the second coat. I've mainly used traditional style varnish products and two-part products in the past. Halcyon, being water-based, is very convenient when it comes to cleaning your brush and containers. Just as with any other high gloss finish, it is super nice to have a light source off to the side so you can sight along what you're working on to spot any dry spot or other issues. While I'm waiting for the minimum 1 hour overcoating interval, I might as well make myself a little useful here in the yard. This powerboat here has suffered a somewhat interesting fail. As the astute viewer will have noted, there is no cover over the exhaust here. That's been removed so that we could take a peek up inside of here, because there's a bit of an issue up here. This has to be one of the more creative shots I've done recently, but if you look up here, there's some thickened goop up here. That is used to bond this box here to the rest of the hull, and that is where the exhaust attaches over here. We don't know exactly what happened. The boat might have taken a bit of a hit here that then caused that molded part to separate away from the hull, because it wasn't glassed in, it was just gooped in. But either way, it's not good. Here are the remnants of thickened whatever goop they used to bond that box in place originally. Apparently when the owner took the boat out, they noticed that there was exhaust steam or smoke or whatever coming up the side of the hull here. Most likely because that box is no longer attached to the hull. Despite what it might look like on camera, there is not a lot of room to maneuver around in here, but I think the best fix we can do is to prep the surfaces and then lay up a few layers of glass here to actually bond the molded part to the hull permanently. There's a hole here under the bottom of the hull where we can kind of see up into this little area, but there is going to be a little bit of working by feel involved here. After copious amounts of sanding, I think we have something we can work with here. It is the next morning. I got 5 coats of the Halcyon on there yesterday. As per the TDS, we need to wait 48 hours before a light sanding, and then we can apply the final 1 to 2 coats. I do have some brush marks. I don't really love that, but it is my first time using this product and they don't really matter, right? Because we are gonna knock down everything before the last 2 coats. Doing that has kind of been the standard procedure for every single varnish type product I've used over the years. It's a great opportunity to get rid of any bugs, dust, or brush strokes. I've always preferred the look of a satin finish, but also a satin finish will hide any small imperfections way better than a glossy finish. We'll get back to the satin finish tomorrow. Now, unfortunately, about an hour ago, I got a message from FedEx Freight saying that the windows for the shipping container that was supposed to get delivered today are not going to get delivered. So unfortunately, we can't do that in this week's video. But yeah, let's forge ahead with the repair on that powerboat. Just in case you're wondering why I am doing this repair, well, one of the really nice guys that work here in the yard, he had a little accident yesterday, so I'm just pitching in to help a little bit. I cut some strips of non-crimp biaxial. This should have an easy time conforming to the shape even inside of that cramped space. To span the small gap and make sure we don't get any leaks, I made a fillet with some thickened epoxy. Getting the glass positioned was a little bit of an adventure, but with a bit of patience, it all worked out. I think that went pretty well considering the somewhat confined area. Now, I did oversaturate the glass a little bit to make sure I didn't get any dry spots. So I knew it was going to drip, which is why I added this whole contraption. The next morning, after having given the repair a light sanding, I shoved my camera in there, and while the repair isn't super pretty, it'll definitely do the job. The only reason for that light bit of sanding was just to make sure that there are no sharp fiberglass pokey bits protruding out to mangle anybody that needs to get their hand in there at some point. I think what we did is a great repair for that old Seaway. It was quick to do and it should get the boat back on the water in good as new shape. It's almost been 48 hours since the last coat of varnish, so let's see if we can get some satin on here. As per the instructions, I scuffed up the surface and applied a single coat of the satin finish. That has now been sitting for a few hours. It's nice and touch dry, and I think this looks pretty dang spiffy. I've never really used a clear finish before. I've always used stuff that has kind of like an amber color to it, and I do think that would look better on this than the clear. And also, my little oopsie-daisy from last week is pretty visible. The astute viewer will remember this little ding from last week that I filled out with a bit of epoxy. Had this been a darker type finish, that would have been completely invisible. Of course, I don't really care how these look. These are more so than anything else a durability test to see if we want to use Halcyon on the inside of the boat when we get that far. In terms of applying the Halcyon, I loved it. It was easy to use, it was quick, and it's nice that it's water-based for the cleanup. That makes that a little bit easier. The finish, I like it. I think I need a little bit more practice with it, potentially some tips and tricks from TotalBoat, because I still have some light brush strokes in it, so maybe I need to thin it a little bit, something like that. I just got a notification that FedEx Freight has finally swung by the marina, so let's mosey on out there. To be honest, this whole week has been a little bit of a mess, but at least some good news. The windows for the container arrived a little earlier today. Sadly, we are out of video shooting time for this week, but at least now we have the windows here so we can get started on framing the container next week. Whew. We've already started accumulating quite a bit of stuff in here. This is all stuff for the container, like the new windows. These are adjustable legs for my desk, the one I've been varnishing this week. And we have some LED lights that should hopefully be flicker free. Hey guys, a little bit of a surprise ending to this video. Ta-da! Ava.
I'm here.
We are in Orlando.
Yep.
Ava flew over from London and I flew down from Newburn because we had our marriage-based green card interview yesterday.
Yeah, and it seems like it went really well. Neither of us have ever done it before, so it seemed like it went smoothly. The guy who interviewed us had a Star Trek mug, so I feel like him and Mads bond a little bit.
Yep, that was a good sign.
Yeah, good sign.
I think he mentioned that we might have heard back yesterday whether or not our application was approved. We didn't hear back, so hopefully today or in the next week or so.
Yeah, so fingers crossed.
Now it's time for us to wave goodbye to our little hotel room. Ava's flying back to London and I'm flying back to Newburn. Ava will come back to Newburn in October.
Yep. For a short stint.
Yep. In next week's video, I now have everything I need to do the windows in the shipping container, also start the framing. Hopefully we can finish the framing next week. That would be cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, that is going to be the end of this week's video. I hope to see all you guys back aboard the nearish catamaran next week. As always, feel free to leave a comment down below, and don't forget, if you've enjoyed this video,
please remember to leave a like.
See you! And of course, thank you to Surfshark for sponsoring this week's video.